side, we turn to Indiana Congressman, member of the House Armed Services Committee, Jim Banks. He also serves as chairman of the Republican Study Committee's Budget and Spending Task Force. Congressman, the perfect person to have join us on this topic. So you heard your Democratic colleague essentially say the entire idea of hosting this kind of a conversation at Camp David was inappropriate. He's not giving the president any kudos for canceling it. He says it was an error of judgment to schedule it in the first place. What say you?
Well, we've seen this before. The president, once it was obvious to the president that the Taliban wouldn't keep their end of the bargain, he walked away from a bad deal, and we should all be happy about that. I've been skeptical about these negotiations for over a year when they first begun. I even wrote legislation to get Congress more involved to certify any deal that would occur. But all the while, I welcomed that this president will go to extraordinary lengths to keep his campaign commitment and the commitment that the American people support to bring our troops home. I served in Afghanistan just before I became a congressman. Some who I served with didn't come home. And for 18 years, we've been doing the same thing every single year. And this president is the president who, in the most responsible way, has been trying to find the best way out, the best path forward to bring our troops home and leave a situation in Afghanistan that's better than what we found it.
Normally, we don't like to play hypothetical, but I think since the president raised the specter of something that could have happened but didn't, we have a little more room here. Let's play this scenario out, right? Let's say the Taliban, let's say an American hadn't died and the president had decided for whatever reason to go forward with the talks. We woke up today, they were underway. If we came out with a deal, right, on the other end, let's say we didn't even come out with a deal but made progress. Would it be worth it to hold these talks here at Camp David just 3 days before 9/11 when the memory of 9/11 is so fresh in service members' minds?
Well, let's set the timing aside. Let's set the location aside. And for a moment, let's realize that when we're dealing with the Taliban, as dangerous as they are, the deaths that they've been responsible for in Afghanistan of American troops, of NATO troops, of Afghan citizens, what we're dealing with the Taliban is Mickey Mouse, a Mickey Mouse operation compared to what we would be dealing with ISIS, with Al-Qaeda.
Today, I mean, people might, right, yeah.
As ISIS rise up and really poses a much more sophisticated threat in Afghanistan, this administration, Secretary Pompeo made very clear, the president understands this, is that we have to bring some level of agreement with the Taliban together so that we can fight the real threat that exists with a rising ISIS and with still a remaining threat of Al-Qaeda and other dangerous actors. So the president understands that. Any deal that was crafted with the Taliban would bring together the Afghan government with Taliban entities to try to create more of a civil society there so that we have a better ally and teammate to do what we have to do to destroy ISIS.
Take a listen to your Republican colleague, Adam Kinzinger, on our air just, less than an hour ago. I want to get your reaction to this.
To bring the Taliban, I mean, I was actually quite sickened last night to learn the Taliban leaders were coming to the United States of America, not that far away from New York City, frankly, and they have yet to renounce 9/11. They have yet to renounce terror. That they would be not only in the United States, but in a place of honor at Camp David was quite shocking.
So he says he was sickened by this, and he seems to be making the case that the timing and the location is everything.
After 18 years, we can't keep doing what we've been doing. And that's what I appreciate about President Trump. Shortly after he was elected, he announced a new strategy in Afghanistan. That strategy has evolved to where we are today. We can't move forward and continue to keep operating at the same level with more of a nation-building strategy in Afghanistan that hasn't worked and appears will never work. That's why we have to bring some level of agreement together with the Taliban. I'm sure that Adam has been aware for over a year that these negotiations have been taking place. He and I have talked about that before. Both of us are skeptical that the Taliban will ever keep their word. And I think that's what bothers, for good reason. I think that's what bothers all of us about the images that would have come out of any Camp David talks. But what's far more important than that is whether or not we can ever come to agreement with the Taliban so that we can focus on the real threat, the greater threat in Afghanistan, which is ISIS and other powerful entities.
Very quickly, we're already out of time, kind of yes or no. What do you think about the president's proposal to bring 5,000 more U.S. troops home?
Well, I think that's no matter what we do, bringing troops home and away from Afghanistan creates a more dangerous situation there as we try to confront a rising ISIS. Now, I was just back in Afghanistan late last year. The troops, the leaders on the ground are talking about the greater and growing threat of ISIS there, and we need counterterrorism troops, but we need a bigger and better strategy, and that's what the president understands and what he's trying to get to.
All right. Well, Congressman, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your perspective.
Good to be here. Thank you.